Hey there, are you grieving the potential loss of a loved one or feeling overwhelmed with the loss of someone you care about? If so, you're in the right place. Lisa Hartung here, and this podcast is designed to guide you through topics surrounding death and dying. We'll dive into multifaceted aspects of grief, offering you a blend of personal stories, expert insights, and practical advice for your grief journey. May this be a safe space for you to learn, listen, and ask questions about your own life and loved ones. So grab your favorite beverage and let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Giving Grief Grace. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'm thinking of you, especially as you are navigating your own grief in whatever way, shape, or form it may be showing up today. It's always part of you. And so know that I'm thinking of you. And today I thought it would be nice to kind of share my personal experience with you as an HR practitioner and a griever myself. So I think that it's really hard when you are working and you're going through, you're either caregiving or you've just lost someone that's super close to you, or a friend, a loved one, and you don't know what to do. And so I wanted to talk about anticipatory grief, caregiving exhaustion, and delayed grief that shows up around anniversaries or special holidays or seasons where the event happened and then maybe 6, 9, 12 months later, even years later, the grief comes up, right? Grief is not linear. Grief has no timeline, but it's hard in the workplace. Let's chat. So I wanted to take us back to when my mom was sick. And so my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer the same week that my daughter was born. She was given 12 months to live, and my family and I moved up to Maine, which is the state in which my parents lived, so that I could help caregive. And my mother-in-law came up as well to help care for our new baby. And so during that time, I am working during the day, and I would always joke like, oh, and I'm cancer fighting by night and on weekends and in the mornings. And so it can be a lot. If you are a caregiver, whew, you are like a superwoman or a superman. It's really challenging. You were seeing your loved one deteriorate in front of your eyes. And it is the worst feeling that I've experienced in my life. And I'm sure that others have experienced some similar challenges. And it's a lot. And so you have this emotionally gripping personal life. And then you go to work and you think, does this even matter? What am I doing? And in the grand scheme of things, is what I'm doing more important than me spending time with my loved one? And it's hard when your loved one has an illness and you don't know how long. You know, we all have an expiration date, but we don't know when it is. And so if someone is diagnosed with cancer, they're given 12 months to live. It could be 6 months. It could be 2 weeks. It could be, 2 years. And you just have to go with that. And so when we got that diagnosis or the prognosis, my husband said, look, when you need to take leave, you'll know. And my biggest fear was waiting too long. So mom was diagnosed in September. We move up to Maine. It's now the following summer, July. So she's been sick for, what is that, 9 months? And she really starts declining. There's a lot of health issues. We're in and out of the hospital. I showed up late I think I showed up 10 minutes late to a team meeting. And everyone was like, oh, Lisa, how's everything going? And I just burst into tears. And I'm not a crier, like in public. I'm definitely much more open to crying now after losing my mom. But at that time, I didn't like to talk about it. And I just burst into tears. And I was like, I have to take my mom to the emergency room. There are a lot of complications going on, and she's just not doing well. And so my boss was so gracious and she said, "You know what, Lisa, sign off, take the rest of the day off and do what you need to do." And I get emotional just thinking about it because she was so supportive throughout the whole time. And I want you to have that too. It's important for you to communicate what your needs are and your manager to be compassionate. And so if you're listening and you're an employee and you are going through a grief-stricken time, or if you're a manager that has a direct report that's going through a really difficult and challenging time, or maybe you're an HR practitioner and you're wondering, "Oh my gosh, how do I navigate this?" It's a challenge. And I think the one thing is to not brush it under the rug. Grief is all consuming. It can be all consuming. It's important to talk about. And one thing that is so important is to show up as a person and a human first and then think about work second. So if you're the employee, my suggestion is be transparent with your boss. I was, she knew, my boss knew that I had moved to the location where my mom and dad were. She knew that I was a caregiver and I also had a newborn, which, in itself is a lot. And so she knew my situation. And I said, "Look, there will be times when I need to just be out of work because something comes up, or I might need to push this deadline because I can't do my normal hours." So I've always been a workaholic. I put the kids to bed, I go back to work. It's not great. I know I need boundaries, but when I was taxed, I could not perform the way I had been performing. And as a manager, you just have to know that your direct report is not in the same frame of mind, or emotional, spiritual, physical. Grief is all consuming. Being flexible in that way. So I let her know, "Mom's sick. I most likely am going to have to take a leave at some point. I don't know when that is, but I will let you know." And she said, "Absolutely. Let's just work together. I am praying that your mom gets better and that we can have this time together." One thing that's important is if you are in the US, and for our listeners outside of the US who might have better leave, be grateful for that. So in the US, we have FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, that protects you, that gives you job protection for up to 12 weeks per year. And these can be taken intermittently, they can be taken all at once. And it's for employers that have 50 or more employees within a 75-mile radius. So I hope that your employer has FMLA as part of the leave that is offered into that category that I just mentioned, because that is job protected leave. So it might be unpaid, but you at least know that you can take that time and still have a job on the other side. You can have benefits throughout it. Like, that is so important. You can use FMLA when you yourself are sick, if you've just given birth to a baby, and if you are caring for a family member. You need to be the primary caregiver. FMLA is super important. And again, one thing that I want to really stress is you have the 12 weeks. Yes, you don't know when your loved one will pass, but know that whatever time you take now is so important. Moments matter. We never know when someone's going to die. As my husband said, you'll know when you need to take the leave, but don't wait too long. I had a woman in a previous company, and she came to me and she said, "Look, I'm caregiving for my husband. He's got cancer. It was pretty advanced." And she said, I just need to take leave. And then she came into my office one day and completely broke down. And she goes, "I can't do it anymore." And I said, "Let's talk about this. Let's get you on FMLA, because it's important for you to be there for your husband, for you to spend this time together, and for you to not worry about work." And as an HR practitioner, I always want to have the employees situation in mind because work, again, will always be there, but your loved one won't. And that's really challenging. So, knowing that what you can take as the employee is so important. Maybe your loved one has already passed and you need bereavement leave. I will tell you in the US, bereavement leave is usually 3 days in most companies, and 3 days is a joke, right? It takes, you yourself need to grieve the loss. Then you have to do paperwork. If you're close to the loss or if you're in charge of any of the things, you have to perhaps work on an estate. Maybe you have to clean out an apartment or a home or multiple homes. Maybe if you don't have any other siblings, then you're doing this all by yourself. Maybe if you've already lost another parent and this is the last one, whatever it may be. There's so much that happens after someone dies. And what about the funeral or the celebration? You need a day for that. And so I just think bereavement leave is so silly. It's 3 days. At my company, we have a policy where, yes, we have a strict 1 week or 2 weeks that you can take off for bereavement, but we say, look, we understand grief has no timeline. And if you need to take time, take it. And we will make whatever needs to happen so that you can take that time. That's something that you really want to be upfront about with your manager of saying, like, hey, I need X, Y, and Z days, or I need this time. And if you feel that you are depressed as you're caregiving, so I was caregiving, absolutely depressed, and I got to the point, meditation and running have always helped me. And it got to the point where I was like, I can't function. I cannot function in my day to day without just feeling so overwhelmed. I'm crying all the time. Medication's great. So I went on a low dose of an antidepressant and it just took the edge off. It also made me not feel so much emotion, so that there were really no high highs and there were no low lows, which I have conflicting ideas about anyway, but whatever helps you get through it, the caregiving part of it and the loss of your loved one. So I went on antidepressants and that's okay. Ask your doctor and say, "Hey, I'm not feeling like myself. Is there anything that we can do?" Going on the antidepressants helped and it allowed me to be more productive at work and in life because I wasn't so overwhelmed with the emotions. But know that if you are so depressed that you need to seek greater support, or maybe you need to go in an institution and get some really dedicated support to help yourself, then maybe you can take short-term disability. If that's an option at your job, like, explore it. Take the short-term disability. That will get you time so that you can heal and you can process your grief and work on your depression because your well-being and your wellness are most important. And when you're caregiving, you are stretched thin on all aspects, on all fronts. So know that. So employees, know what your rights are, be communicative with your boss, just be open. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing personal experiences with your boss verbally, you could write them down. Sometimes it's better to send an email or a message via whatever internal chat system that your company might have. And I would say that if you have a colleague that you consider a friend, confide in them because they're going to be there to support you because they see what's going on at work and maybe they're not in your day to day, but they at least know the company culture. And if there is someone that you can go to and just say, "Oh my gosh, I'm really struggling today," or "Hey, can we go eat lunch together?" It's just so nice to have someone that is an outlet for you that's not in your family or your caregiving aspect or your caregiving realm. They are removed and they're a work friend and they're there for you. So those things are really important. Then if you're a manager and you have a direct report that is going through the process of losing a loved one, or maybe a loved one died suddenly and they're grieving, you are like, gosh, I have no clue what to say. I am not prepared for this. Show up as a person. Like, how would you want to be treated? How would you envision what an ideal scenario is? And each employee is going to be different. And again, grief is different for everyone. Some people are workaholics, some people just shut down and they're like, nope, can't do anything. I remember after losing my grandmother, who I was very, very close with. She died of Alzheimer's. She'd had Alzheimer's for about 10 years before she passed. And it was, slowly, gradual decline. And I was living in North Carolina when she passed, and she was in Maine. And so I was away from her when she passed. I remember my dad and my aunt called me to say, hey, do you want to talk to Graham? Because we're going to pull her off oxygen. And it was so hard. I got this call when I was at work. I went to the conference room and I just sat there. I closed the door and I just sat there and cried. I felt so alone. I didn't have any friends in the area at the time. I was alone. And I got this call that my grandmother, whom I loved, had died. And I just went back to my desk and I just sat there and stared at the computer. And I had a picture of her on my desk. And I was like, well, Graham, I'll see you. So it's hard. It's hard when you get that news. And I think after I sat there for a couple hours, someone was walking by and said, "Oh, Lisa, are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not. My grandma died." And I ended up going home, and then I flew home the next day. My boss had said, "Look, you should take time and whatever you need, just go and do it." But man, it's just so hard getting news when you're not there. When you're not there and it's not easy to get to the place. So, as the manager, you want to really be compassionate. Put yourself in their shoes. We want to make sure that our employees are taken care of. Again, being flexible with deadlines, being flexible with time. And again, if you've ever stared at your computer after a loss and been like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm right there with you. It's the most bizarre thing. You almost forget how to function at times. And that's, I don't know if it's normal. I guess it is, but grief is just such a weird thing. So, one thing that is really important, and my my boss when I was going through the loss with my mom was really helpful with is checking in. So you want to check in privately, not publicly, because that could be really uncomfortable for the person, but checking in. And one thing that I think is really important is if the person's loved one passed on a specific date, put that date in your calendar so that you are reminded of when that date is. And so you can be mindful of if your employee is feeling that delayed grief when that time comes, or maybe they're feeling the delayed grief when it's the holiday season. So always be mindful that grief doesn't go away. It's always there. So if you can be really mindful as the manager, and if the anniversary comes up, you can just say, hey, I am thinking of you today. I am thinking of you. I'm thinking of your loved one. And you could ask them, tell me your favorite story about them. Or what do you miss most? Or if you could say one thing to them, what would you say? Being curious and keeping the stories alive and allowing your employee to share that with you is such a gift. And, it means so much to them if you remember when their loved one passed, because it's a big life change for them. It didn't change your day to day, but it changed theirs. And just being mindful of that is so important. I think one thing to avoid as a manager is not be like, oh, well, at least they died quick, or at least they're at peace now, or like everything happens for a reason. It's like, well, those aren't really helpful sayings. So maybe if you could just lead with curiosity instead. Again, saying, how can we support you? And what do you need right now? How can I help? One thing that's important is not to share the news with other people. So if your direct report comes and talks to you and says, hey, my mom died, and say, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. And there are no words. I just know that I'm here for you. And then say, I want to be mindful of you and I don't want you to have to tell everyone. Is there anyone that you want me to tell on your behalf so that you can grieve the way that you want to and not feel like you have to share it with the world? That's just nice because it opens the door, right, of communication. And so having this person be able to share with you who it's important. I do think it's important to talk to other managers or senior leaders so they just understand what's happening and they can kind of help navigate and cover for your direct report who might need some extra time and wants to do it confidentially, right? So like asking, is there anyone else that you want me to share this with in the org? And not just automatically doing that. And then also saying, hey, do you mind if I let HR know? Because I think they might have some options for you. And just being open to know HR is going to be great because they're your people partner. And so having your employee talk to HR is super helpful. So always feel like you can lean on HR as a resource. If your company doesn't have HR, then you as the manager can go and Google, or you can message me and say, hey, Lisa, I have no clue what to do. I've got an employee situation here. I get texts all the time from friends and past colleagues to be like, what do I do in this situation? So I thought that's why it would be great to have just a podcast episode on that, on this today. So thank you so much for listening. So now you're the manager, you've reached out. One thing that's really helpful, if the employee is able to share with you about the situation, maybe they have a colleague or a friend that's also at work and they're okay with you telling it. Maybe you do a meal train for the family, or maybe you pool funds together and you give them Uber Eats. So or whatever type of meal service that they could just go and get meals. I always love it when people deliver groceries, but think about groceries like fruits and veggies or like prepared meals that they don't even have to think about, because some people are wanting to eat all the time and they're wanting to eat their feelings. And some people are like, no, I don't want to eat at all. And if there's no food, that's fine. I'm not going to go grocery shopping because I literally can't even get out of bed. So, there's all things. Or maybe you could get a meal delivered to the house for the family. Or if the person is caregiving and they're preparing to go out for FMLA, ask them, is there a special thing that is like a bucket list item for your loved one that's dying? We had a colleague who was losing his dad to cancer and they loved going to baseball games together. So we got a jersey made up with their last name on the back, that we knew it was such a struggle for them to go see a baseball game together. But the jersey with their name on the back while they were at the game just made such a difference. And it's like these surprise and delight moments for someone who is going through such trauma. It's just such a gift. Or maybe someone has already passed and they've shared with you, oh, my grandpa loved listening to jazz music. And so maybe you get them a jazz album and say, hey, I'm thinking of you. If you see an event happening, you could say, oh my gosh, I was thinking of your loved one, and they would have thought that this, jazz and dancing was really fun, and it made me think of your loved one. So thinking about how you can meet the person where they are and support them. I know that my girlfriends, when my mom was sick, knew that she and I are both artists. And so they sent me art supplies. And mom and I did art together almost every day, if not every day, while she was sick. That was such a gift, so thoughtful for my girlfriends. And as the person who is grieving, it is important to let people know what is most helpful. Do you want a lasagna bake on Thursday at 5 p.m.? Do you want Prismacolor oil pastels? um, People are willing to help you out because they understand, or maybe they don't understand what you're going through, but they have compassion and they love you. That was a tangent, but thanks for going on that with me. Just being caregiving at work, like taking care of your employee, is just so important. It makes them feel supported, loved, and understood. I know we had a colleague once who she didn't have any children of her own, and she lost her cat, which was like her lifeline. And when her cat died, we got her a hydrangea plant and then a little memorial plaque to go put in front of it. You can look at this and think of your cat, just something little that you can do, but it's so special and it goes a long way. So, as the HR practitioner, what I would do is an employee comes to me or a manager comes to me and says, so and so is losing or has lost their loved one. I would then, of course, come at it from hey, I want to help this person and I want to see how they're doing. If they want to chat with me, they can. If not, I will give the information directly to the manager. I'll say, look, we have an employee assistance program. Almost every company in the US has an EAP. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's a blanket statement, but so many companies have employee assistance programs or EAPs. They are free for employees and they make such a difference. So many of the employee assistance programs have some sort of free counseling as part of the benefit. If it's not free counseling, maybe they have online tools or resources that can help. The current EAP that we have has 3-hour-long sessions per incident per year. So say that you are grieving, you can get one. Say that you are stressed because you are caregiving, that's another 3 sessions. Say that you need support because you need help in X, Y, and Z situation. You ask the EAP and they have like a concierge that they can help you. So you don't have to do everything alone. If you need rides for someone, if you need someone to be a caregiver, or sit there overnight, there are resources out there that can help you. You don't have to do this alone. I would absolutely say that the EAP is available. I also want to share the time off regulations or stipulations policies of the company. So, do you have unlimited PTO? Do you have time off? Do you have accrued time off? Do you have an option where other people can donate paid time off to a grieving employee? That is so sweet. We had a dear friend that had cancer and she ended up passing away at 42. And she was out of work for over a year, and her colleagues banded together and they paid her, or they gave her their PTO so that she could be with her family in the final days of her life and she could still maintain her benefits and her life insurance because that was so important to the family. And what a gift! What a gift that you give 5 days of PTO to someone who is going through that. That not only helped her be with her family at the end of her life, but it helped her family be able to afford to live after, to continue living after she passed. And it's just such a ripple effect when you help people who are really in a tough situation. So maybe there's an opportunity to do some PTO sharing. If not, are there flexible PTO options? We have, my current company, we have an option where if you need to take time off, then take time off. And if it's a situation, we'll work out with the manager, with the team, however much time the person needs. And if it's an extended leave, then we'll talk about it. If it needs to be unpaid, then obviously we will try to make it paid. But if it's unpaid, we have 6 weeks of paid leave for anyone who is going through a situation. They just need a doctor's note for us to sign off on it. And it just gives people ultimate flexibility. These are things that HR can support with. And I think there's a company policy that we always have to live up to. And then there's best practice. So whatever you do for one employee, you need to do for another employee. So just be mindful of that when asking for things. If HR ever says no, there might be a reason behind it. But it's always nice to be like, okay, well, how can we work together? How can we get creative here? Do I have my 3 days of bereavement? Then I take some PTO. I come back to work, or maybe I work half days because, I'm on my antidepressants. I can't do as much. Just being really flexible. Also, coaching managers. So I do a lot of coaching managers of how to work through and process a grieving employee, because you never know how that employee is going to show up. And it is so important to just be compassionate. And sometimes managers can be like, well, it's already been a month. How, like, they're still not doing their stuff. And I'm like, look, grief has no no timeline. Yeah, I understand you need your stuff, but if we find that performance is really failing, then this is an opportunity to talk to the employee of how else can we support you? And do you need to see a specialist? Can we help with whatever? Just saying, do you need support? We would never prescribe anything or be like, hey, you need meds, but we would just say, how can we best help you? And just understand that. So again, anticipatory grief is so much just approaching it as the employee, the manager, and the HR person. People first. Understand. If you are the grieving employee, share your experience and know that, oh man, it is so tough. And if the employer can support you in any way, please let them know. Just like you would your friends and family, let your work team know too. They're here for you, they're supporting you. With that, thank you so much for listening and for tuning in. I think that it's important to understand that at any given time, there is most likely one person or more in your company that's experiencing grief. If you lose a teammate unexpectedly, or if the teammate is sick, then that is a great opportunity for HR to put in some counseling sessions for the company that are open. We had a situation where we lost a team member, and it was so helpful to have a counselor come on site and work with us. We also have there's remote counselor options for remote workforces. So just know that those are options. Oh my goodness, there are PTO, bereavement days, FMLA, unpaid time off, short-term disability. You have options. So understand, grief is not linear, but we can support you through your working environment. And if there's anything that you need, or if you're navigating with like, what do I need to say to HR? Feel free to message and reach out. But know that, if someone is going on leave, then saying, okay, if you're going out for X amount of time, we'll check in at X date. So I went out on FMLA leave. I had that explosion of tears during my team meeting in July. I ended up going out on FMLA leave on 8/15, on August 15th. And my boss said, hey, I hope everything goes well. Just know that we'll check in 6 weeks. If just do a quick check in. Hey, how you're doing? So we knew that in 6 weeks we were going to check. Mom died on 9/12. And so, August 15th, I went out. Mom died 9/12. And so I messaged my team and I said, hey, my mom took her last breath at this time. Thank you so much for being compassionate. They had sent me meals or gift cards for meals while I was out on leave, and just said, look, I know we're thinking of you. I connected with my boss and I said, look, I need to be out because I'm going to go through all of my mom's stuff and do paperwork. And then we're going to have our celebration of life. So I'm actually not going to come back to work until October 15th. So I went out on 8/15 and got back or went back on 10/15. So I was with my mom for a month. And then I had a month of just taking care of business. That's the aftermath. So again, no, it's super important to have that time if you need it. If you're a workaholic and you want to go right back, then do it. It's really up to you and what makes the most sense. But at the end of the day, just be human, be kind, be compassionate, and understand that everyone has challenges and some days are harder than others. So, with that, thank you so much for your time and being a good person, right? How can you help someone today? If this was helpful for you, if you know someone that is in this, oh, I don't know what to do, and how do I talk to HR? Or, hey, I know an HR person that could really benefit from this, please feel free to share it. But know that I'm thinking of you. I'm sending hugs, sending love your way, and I will check in and see you next time. Have a good one. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Giving Grief Grace. It would be such a gift if you could share this episode with someone and brighten their day. You never know what will happen. Subscribe to get a weekly dose of positivity, and while you're at it, please leave a review. May you be kind to yourself in the week ahead and give yourself grace. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.